2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. I almost went down to South Florida last weekend to see the Swan Song for Mick and Keith and the Stones. I didn't go to that. I still have not made it to the Hard Rock Stadium. This will be my first week there. But through storms and trades and sell-offs, Habib has covered football down in South Florida for going on 4 decades now. He's Gunner Hal out on Twitter and Habib at palmbeachpost.com, where the storm was a churning earlier this week. But, man, the Dolphins just sort of sold off the shop before the storm came, before Labor Day came. I can't imagine there will be any traffic lines on the way to the stadium this Sunday, Hal.
No, I think good seats, good entire sections will be available for anyone who wants to attend this game.
Well, I mean, you've seen a lot of bad football. I mean, you've seen a lot of good football back in the day in Marino and, going back to Zonka and all that. It's been a long time. This is the latest sort of rebuild. I'm starting to ask the question, is the owner the problem?
Well, that's a tough question. I think that Steve Ross's heart is in the right place. I know he wants to win. And, he's never been a guy to say no when the GM or whoever is in control of the roster comes to him and says, I want to get this guy, I want to get that guy. He never says, no, we can't afford it. And, at the same time, the NFL told him, we're never bringing the Super Bowl back here 10 years ago. And, Steve went the routine route of trying to get public money or whatever to upgrade the stadium. And when that didn't work, he threw $500 million of his own money to get the stadium up to Super Bowl standards. And that's why the Super Bowl this year is going to be in Miami. Unfortunately, the Dolphins won't be sniffing that game by any sense of the imagination.
Well, I want to be LeBron James, too, but that's not going to happen. And Steve Ross wants to be a great owner in the NFL. It just feels like, Dan Snyder extended to me to some degree, that there's a shiny object, I buy it, I want it, whether it's a coach, whether it's a football evaluator, or whether it's a stadium, whether it's a Super Bowl, that when you have that kind of dough, and all these guys have that kind of dough, it's just sort of like, well, this week I'm going to fund, civil rights, and next week I'm going to give money to Donald Trump and hold a party for him. I mean, it's incredible how he is trying to be everything to everybody. That rarely works out well in sports.
Yeah, and I mean, the classic example was $114 million at Ndamukong Suh, which, looking back, and even at the time, if you really took a step back, you would say that wasn't really the best move they can make. I mean, I think the most successful teams in this league are teams that spread the wealth when it comes to the salary cap, with the exception of quarterback position, stuff like that. Does it make sense to throw $114 million at a defensive tackle? No, it doesn't. As good as Sue was down here, I would have a hard time pointing to any particular game and saying Miami won because of Sue. I can tell you plenty of games that Miami won because of Jason Taylor and certainly Dan Marino, but a defensive tackle, it's a little bit harder.
Habib has covered the Miami Dolphins for a long, long time. He's seen a lot of things. Hasn't seen a winless season yet, although that was staved off a number of years ago, and certainly the Brian Billick administration and Cam Cameron. The Dolphins wrote quite a tale in the history of Ravens lore when Matt Stover missed a kick down there low these many years ago, going on 12, 13 years ago now. It changed our franchise. We're coming in here this week. I don't know what's left. I mean, you talk about this sell-off. Is there a part of it that you do understand because the team probably wasn't going to win 5 or 6 games this year?
Well, I thought I knew what the plan was a week ago. And then, to their defense, I would say that if the Texans are calling me and saying, we're going to give you 2 1s and a 2 for Tunsil and Stills, I would probably take that. That's a pretty good deal from Miami's point of view. However, the skepticism down here is that, you have all these draft picks, and Miami had like a dozen picks for next year alone, even before this deal. But the skepticism is simply, okay, what do you do with those picks? And has Miami done anything over the past several years to earn the trust that they were going to spend those picks wisely? No, they haven't. That's as blunt as I can be. When you look at some of the guys they've taken, you really have to wonder. I can even go back to moving up to take Deion Jordan third overall. Where was that? Where was that coming from? And so, especially second-round picks over the past decade or whatever, Miami has really bombed out with second-round picks. So it's great to have all these picks, but you have to do something with it. And not only that, they gave up Laramie Tunsil, and there's every indication that one of those high picks that they got in return is going to be spent on a left tackle. And it's a matter of, do they hit or miss with that choice, and how long does it take to develop them into what Laramie Tunsil already was? Do you want to gamble on the knowledge you have of getting someone in the future, or do you rather have, the money in the bank in a sure thing in Tunsil?
Well, and I guess in the modern era, when you have someone that's in the Hall of Very Good, if he's a good citizen and you want to keep him around, you feel like, well, we're a year or two away in this league. It's not baseball where it's 5 years away where you would want to keep somebody around. Obviously, they spent a lot of money on the cornerback last week, right? So, and Xavier Howard in the offseason. So, there's a thought that they did spend some money. It feels like a step forward, 2 steps back, and in a lot of cases, it's who's evaluating this, right? Like whether it's Gase who wanted to get out of there, or whether Flores is bringing some sort of New England program that we've heard, many, many times is going to be taken to the next place and never sort of is, because Belichick isn't brought with it.
Yeah, the one hesitation I have right off the bat, and I wrote this already, is that back in the spring during the draft, they gave up a number 2 for Josh Rosen. And now with this trade they just made, to me, that's a wasted pick. I don't think Rosen, frankly, is set up to fail here, just like he was in Arizona. He was sacked 45 times last year in Arizona, and now he may be playing behind a line that's even worse. And I saw some rankings that just came out that had Miami as the worst offensive line in the league. Well, big surprise there, right? If you look at their depth chart online, it's kind of humorous right now. Ravens fans might want to take a look, because right now they have 3 offensive linemen starting, and there are 2 slots that are just left blank. That's how lean the shelves are right now. I mean, earlier this week in the locker room, there were guys wandering around, so many new faces. One of the things you heard most often was, hey, where are the showers? Where's the restroom? These guys are just...
What number am I?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, at one point, they had 10 undrafted free agents making the team. And since then, they've made so many roster moves that I haven't even done the math on how many undrafted free agents. And not only are they picking up guys off the scrap heap from other teams, but look at the guys Miami has cut. And either none or virtually none of them are getting picked up by anybody else. That really tells you a lot right there.
How does it get this bad? And I guess, how do they fumigate it over the next 20 weeks? I mean, this is a franchise that's had a lot of problems, right, in drawing fans and drawing interest. And I would even take it even more broad with the Storm this week down there. And then you see what the Miami Marlins did to the community there. It just feels like the beach is always close, and I don't need the Miami Dolphins or the Miami Marlins if I lived in West Palm. You know what I mean? Like, I really do wonder how they build it back up once it gets blown up to this extent.
Well, the fans down here have seen 2 fire sales with the Marlins, like you mentioned, and now they're seeing, frankly, a fire sale with the Dolphins. And at least the Dolphins are getting something in return for selling off these players, unlike the Marlins. But there is that. I mean, at one point a few weeks ago, I asked Tom Garfinkel, the president and CEO of the Dolphins, how they were doing with ticket sales. And he said that the season ticket sales were going great, on par with what they've always been.
And then we're going to show up on Sunday. And
that's the problem. They're not going to show up, no. And I really look forward to seeing the atmosphere on Sunday, how many empty seats there are going to be, whether fans boo right off the bat, and whether they're booing in November. It's going to be an interesting situation. Are fans down here patient, or are they just fed up with this? I can't even say the same old. I started to say that, but the same old would be 8-8, and this team isn't going to be anywhere near 8-8.
Well, and I think for us coming down there this weekend to find this mess, we're trying to measure our own football team, right? Like, I'm here all day. Hal Habib is joining us here from the Palm Beach Post. You can find him at Gunner Hal on Twitter. You know, Hal, I'm here talking about Lamar Jackson, what we're going to do, and where's the defense, and where's the pass rush coming. And there is a point where the Ravens better not lose down there on Sunday. You know, there's that part of it, and seeing that the Dolphins are 300-1 and the 32nd shot in the league, that this, while never a gimme in the league, that it feels like they are visiting, you know, franchise turmoil this week, literally, and trying to figure out where the pass rush is coming and who's going to tackle whom. This may be a little bit of fool's gold this week for the Ravens, but it certainly should be the kind of week that we long for in a Week 1 road game in the National Football League, right?
Harbaugh is going to hate me saying this, but I really do want to say this is a gimme. I can't see any way that the Ravens lose this game. I just can't. Miami, it's so lean right now. That so many guys are trying to figure out, you know, where they fit in, and the coaches are trying to figure out, you know, 5 guys for an offensive line. Who are they going to be as far as the pass rush? Well, Miami just lost a lot of guys, including Cameron Wake, in the offseason. So the guys who are remaining on this roster have no track record whatsoever about being able to get to the passer. So I don't think Jackson's going to have much problem with that. Man, it's just the one guy who you can really point to on the Dolphins right now as a proven elite player is Xavier Howard, the cornerback. And right now, after all that's gone on, I would have to say, you know, why hold on to him? I mean, it sounds horrible to say it that way because he's such a good player, and yet, what's the difference between, you know, 3-13, 2-14, whatever? They could probably get some really nice return if they were to deal him, and I wouldn't blame them at this point because everybody else is gone.
Well, the other part of it is they're going to say they have cap money. They can go out and sign in the offseason. They can have 3 or 4 first-round draft picks, and they can, you know, rebuild this thing very, very quickly. And, you know, this time 2 years from now, we'll be talking about them as, I don't know, the Cleveland Browns of the South or something, Hal.
Well, but the danger there, Miami has had such really mediocre luck in free agency, and they've kind of sworn off that. They say they want to build through the draft. So to me, it's bad enough what we're going to see in 2019. To me, 2020 isn't going to look a whole lot prettier. You know, maybe in 2021 they start turning the corner. It's going to take a while. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of free agency either, except for those teams that need 1 or 2 final pieces of the puzzle. I think that's where it really works for you if you get the right guy.
Hal Habib has covered the Miami Dolphins for 4 decades. He's down at the Palm Beach Post. You can find him at Gunner Hal out on Twitter, always doing South Florida sports. Last thing for you, I have not been down to the stadium since, well, I mean, I've been coming to the stadium for 30 years, right? So, you know, in the beginning when it was Joe Robbie and baseball games and football games and Dan Marino and concerts and all of that stuff, Super Bowls, it's really noticeable when you look at it in pictures. I know maybe it's old news to you, but I'm going to see a new facility, right? A lot of Ravens fans that have traveled down there the last 25 years are going to see a new place on Sunday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have a canopy that kind of shields a good portion of the fans from the elements. They put in a new 360-degree ribbon board in there. They've done a ton of landscaping. There's a tennis facility surrounding the stadium for the Miami Open. And just about 2 weeks ago, the Dolphins broke ground. They're moving their training facility from Davie, 13 miles north of the stadium, to the stadium grounds. And that looks like a pretty nice facility from all the renderings we've seen. So there's a lot going on. I mean, there's a reason the NFL is bringing the Super Bowl down here, and it is, it's a very nice statement. $500 million. You'd be surprised, Nestor. I bet you could do some pretty good things with $500 million. What do you think?
Yeah, I can fix Baltimore. Send it up here, Hal. We'll take it from Palm Beach. Hey, man, survive the storm. Hang in there. We're coming down this week for some great Cuban food and some JV football, quite frankly. I've gotten on many planes going down to Miami worried about losing. To your point, I'm hoping this will have a happy flight back home for me on Sunday. We'll see you at the game on Sunday, Hal.
Sounds good. Thanks very much.
Hal Habib, Gunner Hal at Palm Beach Post. He's been down in West Palm getting it done down there, covering the fish for 40 years. Also a dog fan and a soccer fan. He's got a beautiful German Shepherd up on the Gunner Hal Twitter page. So anybody that loves their animals, I'm all for that. I love my cats. So Be More Humane's got Dog Fest coming up next week. So you want to go to BeMoreHumane.org and learn more about Baltimore Humane and what they're doing. So there's my free plug for the Humane folks and for Kate and Chris and all my friends. There you have it. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. It's Dolphins Week. Shake and bake that Dolphin steak, as my dad would say in 1977 with Glenn Dowdy. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.